I promised my mother we would return together. I promised I would take care of him.
But promises on the battlefield are just words that burn in the fire of artillery. Generals called it liberation. The soldiers called it the meat grinder. June 1944, Normandy. A landscape of hedgerows where the roots were fed by the blood of thousands of young men. 1 man against 3 machine gun nests. 12 enemy dead. 1 platoon saved. This is not the story of generals or maps. This is not a tale of grand strategy. This is the voice of 1 soldier, Walter Ehlers, who walked through hell to become a hero, but lost the only thing worth living for. Because in war, medals do not fill the void. Welcome to Echoes of Valor X. The history of the Second World War is often written in the ink of victory. We see flags, we see parades, we see newsreel footage where soldiers smile and smoke cigarettes. But the true history of war is not written in ink. It is written in the telegrams that arrive to mothers weeks after their sons have already been buried. Today, we transport ourselves to June 1944, into the ranks of the famous 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. Among the thousands of faces ready for the invasion, there were 2 brothers, Walter and Roland Ehlers. They grew up on a farm in Kansas. They joined the army together. They survived North Africa and Sicily together. They were inseparable. They had an agreement, a sacred pact that brothers make before the face of death. Always find each other when the shooting stops. But Normandy is a place where pacts are shattered. Today we will tell you the true story of Walter Ehlers, a story of how 1 man can possess superhuman courage when he is driven not by hatred for the enemy, but by love for a brother, and of the terrible price that must be paid for the title of hero. June 6th, 1944. Omaha Beach. The water was red before they even touched the sand. Walter was a staff sergeant. His brother Roland was a sergeant in the same regiment, but in a different company, in a different boat.
Before the landing, I searched for my brother with my eyes. Around us was chaos. The roar of engines, the smell of diesel and fear. See you on the beach, each of us thought. Maybe by Christmas, we'll be home.
But hope on Omaha Beach does not live long. When the ramp dropped, hell opened up. This was not a battle, it was a slaughter. The MG-42 machine guns, known as Hitler's buzzsaws, tore men apart at a rate of 1,200 rounds per minute. Walter Ehlers led his men through this firestorm. He fought his way through the barbed wire, through the minefields, through the screams of the dying. He did his job. He was a professional. But in every pause between explosions, in every moment of silence, his eyes searched for 1 figure, the figure of his brother. By the evening of June 6th, the beach was taken. The cost was monstrous. Walter survived. He began to ask questions.
Have you seen Roland? Has anyone seen Roland Ehlers from K Company?
No one knew. No one had seen him. In the chaos of the landing, entire platoons vanished.
Maybe he is wounded and evacuated, I told myself. Maybe he fought his way further inland.
Hope is a cruel thing. It forces you to walk forward even when reason screams that it is over. Walter clung to this hope. He convinced himself that Roland was alive. He had to be alive. Otherwise, how could he look into his mother's eyes? Day turned to night. June 7th, June 8th. The 1st Division advanced deeper into Normandy. But this was no longer the open terrain they were used to. This was the bocage, the country of hedgerows. June 1944. Gauville, France. Imagine a chessboard where every square is a field surrounded by earthen walls as tall as a man. These walls, the hedgerows, had been reinforced for centuries by the roots of trees. Tanks could not break them. Bullets stuck in the earth. For the Germans, it was the perfect fortress. For the Americans, it was a death trap. June 9th. Walter Ehlers' platoon was in the lead. They moved cautiously, step by step. The silence was deceptive. In the bocage, death is always at arm's length. Suddenly, a crack. They had walked into an ambush. A German patrol. 4 men appeared out of nowhere. Walter did not hesitate for a second. It was instinct. It was steel, tempered in the battles of Africa. Before his men could understand what was happening, Ehlers was already acting. He killed all 4, coldly, efficiently. But that was only the beginning. Hidden behind the hedgerow was something worse. 2 machine gun nests and a mortar crew held the field under crossfire. The platoon was pinned to the ground. To lift your head meant catching a bullet in the forehead. Any tactical textbook will tell you, retreat, call for artillery, do not launch a frontal attack on machine guns. But Walter Ehlers was not reading textbooks in that moment. He was thinking of his men. He was thinking that if they stayed here, they would die.
I told them to keep firing, keep their heads down, and then I went forward. Someone had to.
He ordered his men to open suppressive fire, and he went forward, alone. He crawled along a ditch, hiding in the tall grass. He approached the first machine gun nest from the flank. The Germans were too busy firing at his platoon to notice the lone madmen creeping up on them with grenades and a rifle. Explosion. Screams. Silence. Ehlers destroyed the first nest. He killed 4 gunners. But he did not stop. Next was the mortar crew. Ehlers threw himself at them with the fury of a berserker. 3 more enemies fell. But the second machine gun nest remained. It continued to spit death at his men.
I remember thinking, if I stop now, they die. If I keep going, maybe I die. But that's my choice. Theirs is to live.
Walter advanced again, under fire, completely exposed. A bullet tore into him, but he kept moving. He reached the second nest and killed the remaining Germans at close range. His platoon was saved. The line held. The advance continued. That day, 12 enemy soldiers died at the hands of 1 man. But in Walter's mind, there was only one question.
Roland, where are you?
Days later, after the fighting around Goville, the front shifted. The paperwork began to catch up with the bullets. Reports were filed. Names were checked. Somewhere behind the lines, a clerk typed a few dry words that would tear a hole in a mother's heart. Killed in action. Omaha Beach, June 6th, 1944. Roland Ehlers. The news did not reach Walter immediately. In war, information travels slower than death. He kept asking about his brother, kept searching faces in every new unit they met.
Maybe he's in a field hospital. Maybe he lost his tags. Maybe.
The truth found him not on the beach, not in the hedgerows, but later, in a quiet moment between battles, when someone finally had the courage to tell him. Roland had never left Omaha Beach. He had died on D-Day, on the very day their pact was supposed to save them both.
I had led men through fire. I had killed to keep them alive. I had done everything a soldier could do, but I had failed the only mission that truly mattered. I did not bring my brother home.
For his actions near Goville, for his lone assault against 3 enemy positions, for covering his platoon's withdrawal while wounded, Walter Ehlers was awarded the highest U.S. decoration, the Medal of Honor. They pinned the star to his chest. There were speeches, handshakes, photographs, but medals are light. Grief is heavy. A piece of metal cannot replace a brother.
People called me a hero. They saw the medal, the citation, the numbers, 3 machine gun nests, 12 enemy dead. But they did not see my mother's eyes when she read Roland's name on a telegram. They did not see the empty chair at our table back home.
History loves clean stories, a hero, a feat, a medal. But real stories are not clean. They are stained with mud, fear, and the tears no one films. Staff Sergeant Walter Ehlers survived the war. He built a life after the uniform. He lived long enough to tell his story himself. But every year, when D-Day was remembered with speeches and ceremonies, he knew that the true cost of that day was not counted in medals. It was counted in brothers who never came home. War creates heroes, but it also creates widows, orphans, and empty fields where brothers once walked together. When you hear the words Medal of Honor, remember, behind every medal there is someone who did not return. Behind every citation there is a void that will never be filled. This was the story of Walter and Roland Ehlers. One medal, one hero, one grave on Omaha Beach. You have been listening to Echoes of Valor X. If you want more true stories from the trenches, from the beaches, and from the skies of the Second World War, subscribe and stay with us. Because behind every line in a history book, there is a human voice, and it deserves to be heard.